following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Golenbock University, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all.
Ralph.
However,
so modest.
I'm not modest. Believe me, I know my place. Mr. Golenbock is here to introduce a terrific guest. Peter Golenbock, sir.
Yes. Our guest today is Gabriel Schechter, who is a wonderful author, and he's also very much involved with one of my favorite organizations called SABR, which is the Society of American Baseball Research. Even though they're trying to change the rules of keeping score, I'm still a big fan. SABR is a huge organization and has done a lot of wonderful things. It has gone back into the records and done a lot of record keeping. It's written fabulous articles about players who otherwise would probably have been forgotten by the world. And I must say, just from my years of being in SABR, just a terrific group of people who absolutely adore the game of baseball. Very much better.
Like
Gabriel?
ourselves, all three of us.
Yeah. So, Gabriel, how did you get involved in this organization?
In 1991, I went to Cooperstown to do research at the library at the Hall of Fame. I set a record at the Hall of Fame, by the way. I was there 1 year doing research as a visitor every day.
And who was you research?
I'm sorry?
Who were you researching at the time?
I was still trying to write a modern novel based on the Victory Faust story, and I was doing research for that. I eventually found out that the true Faust story was much better than the one I was trying to invent, and then I wrote about Faust. But that summer, I met Bob Davids, the founder of SABR, and I spent a lot of time with Bill Dean, who was the head researcher at the library there, and that persuaded me to join SABR. I've been a happy member ever since.
That's wonderful. What?
May I say something, Peter?
Of course.
One of the SABR areas you mentioned is biographies. The SABR Bio Project, I think, is what you were referring to, and it's an attempt to write and post a biography of everybody who ever played in the major leagues, which is now over 19,000 people. And they've already done several thousand. And it's a beautiful thing. I think you'll agree with me, Peter. One of the tough things, and it gets tougher in these days of sabermetrics, is to do what I call rehumanizing players. It's so easy to judge players strictly by their numbers and to forget that they're human beings. And that's one thing the SABR Bio Project does. It puts a player's career in the context of his life.
That's wonderful. Sure. I mean, it was something I've been trying to do for the last, 50 years. Same.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, my favorite book of yours, Peter, is The Forever Boys. Just for that reason.
Yeah, you're not alone. It's funny.
No, not alone on this airway tonight. I love that book. It not only did it bring me together with Peter, but I read it at a time when I was going through a midlife crisis, as it were, of my own, and that's continued every decade. By the way, that ain't going away. But I can't tell you how I love that book. So, wow, we share that.
Oh yeah, it's about the men who happen to be great ball players.
Exactly.
And I'm a frustrated novelist, but I think like a novelist. I believe everybody's life could be a novel. And we're so hasty. We forget that every major leaguer is way over on the right edge of the bell curve of athleticism and skill in baseball. So even the cup of coffee guys were hometown heroes.
No question about it. Stars.
And yeah.
Many of them stars in college. And it doesn't matter who, whether they had a cup of coffee or not. At some point, these people were the best of the very best.
Absolutely.
It's so easy to forget.
And the subject of a dream of every kid that goes to sleep with a transistor radio in their ear dreams of one time getting out on that field and, just doing their thing. So
that was the point of the Victory Faust story.
Gabriel, tell those who may be listening who Victory Faust is. You and I know. It's one of the greatest, oddest, pieces of superstition that you've ever heard of. It's so bizarre.
Absolutely.
And it concerns the great, giant manager. So tell that story.
Yeah, in July of 1911, the Giants were in third place in St. Louis, going nowhere, and this odd-looking guy in his Sunday clothes came out of the stands, wanted to talk to John McGraw, and said, "Mr. McGraw, my name's Charles Victor Faust. I'm from over in Kansas, and a fortune teller told me I would pitch the Giants to the championship." And McGraw was very superstitious. "Hey, here's a ball. Let's see what you got." He had nothing. They gave him a bat. "Take some swings, run around the bases." He finally tapped the ball to the shortstop. They threw the ball away, made him run around the bases, slide into every base. When he got home, his Sunday clothes were torn, he was covered with dust, and he was laughing. And the Giants won 9-0 that day.
Yeah.
And on and off for the rest of the season, he was with the team. He became their mascot, their good luck charm. Mascots, real human on the bench mascots were common back then. He became the star of the pregame show, which was a long affair back in those days. And when he was in his uniform and doing his thing, the Giants went 36-3. It's unbelievable.
It was.
Until they clinched the pennant. And then he got into 2 games. He pitched 2 innings. He didn't have enough stuff to hit. Gave up just 1 run, and he's on the same page of the encyclopedias as Bob Feller. He was, except for Eddie Gaedel, he was, I believe, the least athletic person ever to play in the major leagues.
Yeah, sounds right. It's an amazing story. It really is.
Yes.
Oh, it is. It is. Fred Snodgrass told the story to Lawrence Ritter in The Glory of Their Times.
Exactly.
Which my father brought me when I was 15 years old, and I've been pretty much obsessed with it ever since.
Well, it's still the best book ever written about baseball. Still, to this day.
I agree. Absolutely.
It's just stunning. Absolutely stunning. And Lawrence was a friend of mine, and I asked him about, how that ended up happening. And quite frankly, he did it only because he was divorced from his wife and he wanted to spend the summer with his son. And so he came up with this idea that he and his son would go around the country and interview these old ball players.
And track them down, which was a big part of it was just finding them.
Because some of them lived in the deserts of Nevada. I mean, it was just amazing.
Yeah, the Sam Crawford one stands out in my mind. He found him at a laundromat, I think.
That's right. And Larry said, quite frankly, I really had no intention of writing this book. I mean, really what I wanted to do more than anything else is spend the summer with my son. Until the players started calling him. Larry, when is this book going to get done? And when they started calling him, he was feeling a little guilty. He thought, well, I owe it to them. And so he put it together, and of course Larry was a brilliant guy. Larry was more than anything else. He was an economist who had a job as a professor working at NYU. He worked at NYU as an economics professor. And he wrote this book. He told me he had no feeling that, this was going to be the greatest book ever written about baseball. He just was doing it because he felt he owed it to the guys.
And he distributed the royalties to them. I believe, right?
But that's very possible. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Peter, you'll like my story. I had dinner with Larry one time.
Okay.
When I was writing the Faust book, he was very encouraging. In fact, he wrote the foreword. And in 1998, right in the middle of all this, I happened to go to New York City and arranged to have dinner with him. Good. And I took a cab down to his place on Amsterdam Avenue, I think it was, and I'm going up to his apartment building, and there's this old guy who looks like a homeless guy, and he's kind of an old pants and just a T-shirt and carrying a couple of shopping bags, and that was Larry Ritter. he was taking 2 bags of books over to a street vendor, and we went out to dinner. And I was a poker dealer in Las Vegas at the time, and he spent most of the dinner talking about the system he had come up for beating the craps table.
That's right.
So we talked about gambling the whole time. We never hardly talked about baseball.
That is so funny. Wow.
Peter, I found something out about Gabriel very recently from Gabriel that I didn't know. He's a poker. Not only was he a dealer, you were a real poker aficionado, really into it for a long time.
I was
World Series of Poker and
really? That's amazing.
I was a poker columnist in Las Vegas in the 1980s before I even started writing baseball history. That was my previous life. I dealt the World Series of Poker 5 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I know.
Well, I'd love to hear about that. So you knew all those famous poker players who were on TV all that time?
I sure did, and I'm just now starting a long overdue poker book. I have so much material for poker books. I could write a half dozen, and I've had a conflict over the years because I love the game and I hate the industry.
Okay.
So I've always had this conflict.
What is it,
I'm sorry?
I may ask, that you hate about the industry?
Well, it's a predatory industry, especially back in the 1980s. Specifically, their own employees. There were many poker rooms in Las Vegas in the 80s that required their dealers to gamble on shift as part of their jobs.
Oh.
Yeah. Here's the analogy. I wrote an article that a couple of people took to the IRS to prove that in a 40-hour work week they were not dealing 40 hours. And here's the analogy I use. Because you would come in and to help start games, dealers sit down and help start the games, and you might lose $50 or $100 and then have to get up and deal. It's brutal. Here's the analogy I used to start the article. Imagine that you work in the emergency room of a hospital. Right. You come into work one day and there are no patients. Nobody. An hour goes by. No patients. And finally the supervisor says, we've got all this equipment and stuff, we got to use it. And they gouge a piece out of your arm. And then they spend a little while stitching it up and everything. And about the time they put the last stitch in, you hear the ambulance siren. Okay, go to work.
That's terrible.
Yeah. That practice doesn't exist anymore, but dealers are still allowed to play where they work. And it's just a very bad thing.
Wow.
So that's part of what I hated about it.
Okay.
Now, when they were required to gamble, did they have to play for so much or lose so much, or
they had to play for so long. They had to be a body in the seat for that long. I worked 2 days in one card room. After the second day, after that I left. I came in and there were 3 games. I hope people can follow this. There were 3 games going and there were 4 dealers on shift. Well, you need 4 dealers for 3 games. You have to take a break once in a while and change tables so the players aren't looking at the same dealer all day.
Right.
But one dealer, it was that dealer's day to play, and she had to sit there and play all day while the other 3 dealers had to sit in the same game all day.
Oh, my.
And late in the day, I saw the cardroom manager, and I said, how do you expect your dealers to work efficiently when they never get a break all day? And her reply was, well, they can't deal anyway.
What? She was just being nasty.
Well, yeah, that was the attitude.
Do pit bosses change dealers when they're not going well for the house?
That happens in blackjack in the pit. In poker, dealers change tables every 20 or 30 minutes.
Okay, gotcha.
So you got to meet a lot of these very famous people who ended up being on TV.
Absolutely.
Who are some of the people you found the most interesting?
Well, one of the most interesting is Doyle Brunson, who is still around. He's in his 80s, and he shows up on TV now and then. Doyle was such a gentleman to deal to, and he was probably the best storyteller of all the poker players. I loved being at the table because it was generally relaxed when he was around. And can I tell you a story that I heard him tell? This is going in the book.
I'd love to hear, 3 or 4 stories that you heard him tell. Sure. This is great. I finally get to talk to Peter Golenbock, and we're going to tell poker stories. This is great. Absolutely.
So Benny Binion was the man who founded the Horseshoe and the World Series of Poker. We're talking about the 60s, 70s now. And Benny Binion had been a big force down in Texas.
Yep.
Before he conquered Las Vegas. And the story goes, Doyle told us, he was playing in a private game in Texas, a very big game, a lot of money, and 3 men came in and robbed the game.
Whoa.
Somewhere out in the sticks in Texas.
Okay.
Robbers left. One of the players got on the phone to Benny Binion in Las Vegas and told him what had happened.
Yep.
Half hour later, the robbers came back, handed back the money, and apologized.
Holy smokes! Whoa! That tells you about the pull and the knowledge that Binion must have had.
Think about that.
Wow!
He knew exactly who did it and where to go to get him in 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yep. You robbed the wrong game, boys. Give it back.
And so what are a couple of the other stories that he told? Because he's been around for years and years.
I know. He told one. Well, let me tell a story about a guy who played against them. Okay. This was one of the World Series of Poker events in the 90s, and I always have to pause when I tell these things just so I don't get too technical. So there was this guy had come to Vegas to play in the World Series of Poker, his lifetime dream, and he got in a hand with Doyle Brunson. And it was a big pot, and the guy went broke. The guy had a pair of queens in the hole, good hand, and Doyle showed him an 8-3 offsuit. A horrible hand, one of the worst hands in the deck, but for some reason he played it, and he made the winning hand, and when he showed the guy the 8-3 offsuit, The guy he burst into hysterical laughter. And he had gone broke, and here he's just laughing hysterically, and he finally calmed down and said, yeah, this is just so surreal. He said, I've read your book 10 times. Doyle wrote a definitive book on big limit poker. I've read your book 10 times. I've idolized you my whole life. I've dreamed of coming to Vegas to play against you. I came here. I actually get to play against you. I get in a pot with you. They're great, and you show me 8-3 offsuit. my whole world, you're just shaking my whole world apart.
Now, was he bluffing him? Was he bluffing in a way that the other fellow folded?
No, the flop had a pair. Well, there were 2 threes. There were 2 threes and came on the flop, so I made 3 threes.
Oh, I see.
He just got lucky. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you know this?
And so I dealt to him and Stewie Unger and Johnny Moss and
you know Money Maker, Money Packer, Money.
I didn't know he came along. He came along after I was done.
Later. Okay.
Yep. I left poker in the year 2000.
And there was a fellow named Phil.
Why did you leave? Why did you leave, and what do you miss about it?
Hang on, I think you're somebody's thinking about Phil Hellmuth.
Yes.
Who won the World Series in '89. I dealt to him every night for years when I went to California. The last few years I dealt to him every night. He was I called him the Billy Martin of poker. You'll appreciate this, Peter, because it was a combination of 3 or 4 traits: arrogance,
right,
aggression,
okay,
egomania, and an overriding insecurity.
Okay, but he still must have been smart as hell.
Oh, absolutely. He's a brilliant player. But his behavior, his whole attitude is, I wrote about him. I wrote about Johnny Moss, the Ty Cobb of poker.
Okay.
But Peter, have you played or watched No Limit Hold'em?
I watch it on TV. I watched it all the time.
All right,
in its glory. Sure.
Well, let me tell you the best analogy, and this will bring us back to baseball. In the early 90s, I befriended a group of British no-limit hold'em players.
Wow.
And one of them had seen a baseball game a long time ago. And he got this group, there were 5 of them, 2 Irish, 3 English. And they asked me to take them to a baseball game. And the Las Vegas Stars were in town. We went out to a Stars game, and on the way to the game, I gave them a little talk. And here's what I told them. The essence of baseball is the same as the essence of No Limit Hold'em. The heart of it is the battle between the pitcher and the batter. It's the same as the battle between any 2 of you when you play each other or when you play anybody else. You build up a history with that player. You remember the hands you've played. You've remembered the patterns of betting the same way pitchers and hitters remember the pattern of pitches.
That's right.
Every at-bat in a game builds on the previous one. Every pot you play with a certain player builds on the last one you played with them. It's the same thing. So we got to the park, and I took him down to the bullpen to watch a pitcher warm up and the different pitches he was throwing.
Right.
Different pitches. The changeup is like a check raise. Fastballs, betting out, raising. It's all analogous. And by the time the game started, they were so into that. And that was great. But base running, no clue. I had no way to explain base running to them. But they loved the pitcher batter battles.
Right. That is just fabulous. Yeah,
May I ask you about tells? Is there
yes.
Is there any poker player that does not have a tell?
Well, I suppose the answer would be no. Now, have people detected them? Maybe not. The players now are much more self-conscious about how they behave and how little information they give away. They tend to hide behind hoodies and sunglasses and to keep stone faces. There's much more of that now than there used to be. There used to be a much bigger interplay of personalities.
Well,
now it's more mathematical.
Explain to them what a tell is.
Yes, a tell is a subconscious movement or something verbal that indicates your underlying emotion.
Right.
So
you might have a good hand, or maybe you'll have a bad hand, but that blink will give you away.
Right, or it's a slight dilation of the pupils when the card comes on the table and you've made you drew your flush or whatever.
Or if you're
and there are verbal tells as well.
Yeah.
And they're what players look for. But it's the same thing. Watch a catcher looking up at a batter between pitches before he decides on the next pitch. That's exactly what he's looking for. Little tells. Did he move his front toe an inch? Well, maybe he's going the other way, so we'll jam him. It's the same thing.
Absolutely right. Listen, have you read this buddy of mine, Jim Swain's book on their sort of mysteries that are about poker? His name
No, I haven't.
Swain. Well, write that down, Jim Swain, and go to Amazon and their paperbacks. And they're
okay.
You'll just
okay.
find them to be so interesting. He's a terrific writer. Lives here in St. Petersburg.
Oh, okay. I'll look for that. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
Okay.
So what's the most money you ever won in a poker game, and what's the most money you ever lost in a poker game?
Well, I stopped playing poker in earnest in my early 30s, and I was never a big limit player. The most I ever won in one session, I think, was about $800.
Wow.
And the most I ever lost was $300 or $400.
Okay.
But when I played small limit poker.
Okay.
Now the biggest pot I ever dealt,
right,
in a live game was about $250,000.
Wow. Oh.
Maybe a little.
You watch somebody win $250,000 in a poker hand. Holy shit.
You also watch somebody lose $250,000.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Absolutely. Peter, have you ever heard of this guy Archie Karras? The guy who almost broke Binion's horseshoe? He was a gambler about.
I didn't know his name, but I knew he was a card counter, if I'm not mistaken. This was about 25 years ago.
Yeah,
he came to Vegas.
MIT guys.
He was no. No, he wasn't one of them, but he was he was mainly a crap shooter, and at one point he was $20 million ahead, or $30 million ahead at the horseshoe. This was over a period of months, and eventually he lost it back. He was one of the all-time sick gamblers. And in the middle of all this crap streak, he came over and he would challenge the big poker pros for heads-up battles. So they put up $500,000 or $750,000, play heads-up.
Oh, wow.
And I remember one day when he was ahead all those millions of dollars, he was walking past my table with a couple of friends who were trying to talk him into buying a house, a boat, something. Why you got this money? Buy something,
Right.
Because they knew he would lose it back, and his answer was, it's just confetti to me.
Wow. Oh, yeah, it's just
sickness
for some of these people.
You heard him say that.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
It's just like Betty.
Bobby Riggs while you were out there.
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Okay.
No.
Sick gambler. He was an.
Were you into the Vegas line, the board, the sports board at all when you were doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't bet much sports after my early 30s, but I did plenty before that, and gosh, I've got so many good sports stories.
Tell us a couple.
Yeah, here's one. There was a very successful poker pro named David Chu. And this story was in 1986. And there was a night when I went over to the Stardust Sportsbook to watch two games that were on side-by-side screens. In these two games, the four pitchers were Dwight Gooden, Nolan Ryan, Mario Soto, and gosh, I can't remember. I'm spacing out the fourth, but you get the idea.
Right. Yep.
Two great side by side, and I was just fascinated by this. After 5 innings, there were 3 hits combined in the two games. Wow. It was fantastic. Yep. And David Chu sat down next to me in the middle of this, and we're talking. I knew him, and then he said to me, "Who do you have tonight?" And I said, I'm not betting. I just came to watch these two games. I wish you could see the look that he gave me. It was like I had just touched down from Mars. It's like, what planet could I be from that I could watch a ball game that I didn't have action on?
Oh, sure. Well,
yeah, that's why he was.
Yeah, you sat at ball games, and I've watched people bet. At the start of an inning, the umpire takes a ball and throws it onto the mound. And
will it stay or not?
These people bet whether the ball will reach the mound and sit on the mound, or whether it will be short or roll off. And they bet a lot of money on this sort of thing.
Yes, yes, they do.
At Yankee Stadium and the bleachers that said no betting, and below that sign, there's a picture on Google of 5 or 6 guys sitting around, no shirts, sitting in the bleachers, betting, going back and forth.
The Joe Mantegna's play, Bleacher Bums, I guess he calls it, is great for that.
Yes. Yeah. That's very, very true. I had one brush with gambling when I was a freshman at college. I sat in on a poker game. I thought I was really a slick poker player. And I sat with these guys. One of them was a senior. He was the scion, either Sears or one of these other catalog companies. The guy was worth all fortune. And at the end of about an hour, I was down $17, which was all the money I had in the whole wide world. So we got finished, and the guy came over to me. He saw how distraught I was. He says, "Look, I want to show you something." I said, "What's that?" He says, "Watch this." And he took the deck of cards, and he turned the cards over one at a time. 8 of spades, 9 of diamonds, jack of spades, 10 of clubs. He turned the deck over one at a time, all 52 cards. And then he said, "Listen to this." And one by one, he turned them over, and he could remember every single card in the order in which he turned them up.
Yeah.
I never, since that day, I never played in another poker game after that.
I could do that.
I don't blame you.
I was just so blown away that somebody could remember 52 cards in a row in the order in which he turned them up, and he didn't spend 2 seconds looking at each card. It was. I'll never forget that guy.
Was he a graduate of the Jerry Lucas Memory School?
He probably was. probably was. But holy smokes!
I wonder if that school would have done well had Willis Reed not hurt his knee, and the Knicks had to get Jerry Lucas.
Wow.
But that became very popular, right? Along with his basketball skills. He was a terrific college player on that 1960 Olympic team.
Are you talking about Lucas now?
Yeah, Lucas.
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I had the pleasure in 1970. I was at NYU Law School, and I had a classmate. Her name was Sally Gold, and she went to North Dakota with Phil Jackson. And she said to me one day, "You and Phil would be great friends." I said, "Yeah, I suspected we would." And she called Phil, and I was working sort of freelance for the Stanford Advocate while I was in law school. So I had credentials to whatever I wanted to go see. And Phil and I got together, and for 3 years, we were really close friends. I mean, it was wonderful. And I got to hang out with all those guys, including Lucas and Willis and Barnett.
Bradley.
And, Bradley, I had played against Bradley. He was at Princeton. I was at Dartmouth.
Oh, really?
Bradley was perhaps he and the LSU Pete Maravich were the two best college basketball players that I had witnessed in person. So Bradley was so amazing that when he would practice, that people would come and flood the arena to watch him practice. That's how incredible he was as a shot. And they wrote that marvelous book about him, The Sense of Where You Are, by John McPhee.
John McPhee. I was just about to tell a story about that.
Okay, you tell a story in a second. But that book was so amazing. Because without Bradley, the rest of those guys, there was one guy who was kind of an All-American, and their center was kind of not so very great. And the other two guys...
Chris Tomford.
Pretty good, yeah. They were pretty good. But without Bradley, they were no, going to the semifinals of the NCAA tournament. With Bradley, they were.
Yep.
And they beat us at home 104-64. And they beat at Princeton 93-33. And watching Bradley made the whole thing worthwhile. He was athletic. He was as perfection a basketball player because he had this sense of where he was,
yeah.
And so his passing was magnificent, and he had a vertical jump of about a half an inch, and yet he was always where he needed to be to get the rebounds.
Yeah,
that was just so amazing to watch, and so to be able to be with the Knicks during that period of 70 to 73 was really kind of magical.
I grew up in Bergen County, New Jersey, and
New Jersey. I lived in Englewood for 5 years.
You lived in Englewood?
I did.
I went to the Elizabeth Morrow School, but I also went to Riverdale High School in Oradell.
I was at the Dwight.
The Dwight School? Dwight Morrow?
No, Dwight Englewood, the private school.
Oh, okay.
I was the baseball coach there for 4 years at Dwight Englewood.
Was that when what's his face was there? I'm spacing it out. But I want to tell you this McPhee story.
Tell the McPhee story, sure.
So I moved to Oregon a year ago, back to Oregon where I went to grad school, and I got tuned into the University of Oregon women's basketball team, which
very good.
Which ranked number 3 right now. They lost to Notre Dame in the regional finals last year, and they have an All-American named Sabrina Ionescu.
Okay.
And so I started watching her on the telecasts, and went to 4 or 5 games, and then I got to go see this girl play because she reminded me, like nobody else had, of Bill Bradley at Princeton.
Wow.
Just always moving without the ball, a nose for the ball when it's loose. You know, already set the women's record for triple doubles. She had another one today. Whenever she gets the ball, the team is always better off when she's done with it. Whether she finds the pass or the shot, she's smart, tough, always in the right spot. So I wanted to see her play. And in anticipation of it, I reread John McPhee's A Sense of Where You Are. Wonderful book. So I went to see her, and she was great. They played Stanford. It was their only home loss of the year, and they lost because a Stanford player scored 31 points in the second half, and that player's name was McPhee.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
I know.
So you're living in Oregon now, of all places? You're living in Oregon. Wow.
It's not Oregon. It's still here, Oregon.
Really? Oh, wow. I don't think
I'm living
anybody from Oregon.
One of the first people I visited when I moved out here was Dave Baldwin, who lives in Yachts over on the coast.
Oh, very nice.
The old reliever. Dave's a great guy.
Yeah. For is track and running.
Well, that's where Nike got started.
Yeah, I went to school there when Prefontaine. In fact, I was there when he died.
Exactly. Wow.
Yeah. I saw Bruce Jenner set the world record there.
Wow, again.
Went to Olympic trials. By the way, they have torn that field down. Hayward Field, a historic field for 100 years. They tore it down. Wow. They're putting up, you know, what's going to be the state of the art, and you know, they'll have a modern facility that justifies its place as the track capital.
Oh, wow.
You know, Hayward Field had all the history, but it was kind of a decrepit place. Wooden stands.
I thought you said when they tore it down they were going to put up student housing. But
no, they're putting up something, you know, it's going to be just this side of the Roman Colosseum, I think.
Right. Probably with the help of Nike, I would guess.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Hey, guys, can we make this a two-parter and come back next week to keep it within the time limit?
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
It's fine with me. Maybe we could even talk some baseball.
That's what I mean. We got a lot to talk about. So
all right, another time. This is a real pleasure,
next
Gabriel.
week, the week after, we'll get it together.
Okay. That sounds like fun.
I'm game.
Everybody, have a great time.
This has been fun. All right. You too, guys.
Thanks, gentlemen. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, Golenbock University. The guest was Gabriel Schechter. I'm Ralph Tycho, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We'll be back next time. Adios, everybody. Thanks for listening. The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.